All right, so welcome everybody. And as I was saying, this is the first in our series. Linda is kicking us off, so I'm very grateful to have you here today. And I'll just handle a couple of logistics. So everybody is muted right now, but if you would like to share, if you have a question, then press the participants button on the bottom of your screen, and then a raise hand button will show up. And if you click that, I'll be able to see that your hand is raised. And because I can't see everybody that's on all of the screens, that's going to be how I know that you have something to share. So if you have trouble finding the raise hand button, send a chat and other people will hopefully help you out. And so I'll introduce Linda. Linda, she's senior partner at Pransky and Associates. She's been teaching the principles for, what is it, over 40 years now?
Long time.
Long time. And, Sydney Banks was her teacher. And over the years, Linda's worked with her husband, George Pransky. They've worked with couples, they've worked with businesses, and now they really, Linda's work really focuses on practitioner development, and they have professional training every year in LaConner that's available in person and online. They offer a mentorship program that both Angus and I have graduated from, and I highly recommend. So, your heart really is behind the work and helping others share it in the world. And I'm very grateful. And on a personal note, but even before the mentorship program, I did an intensive with Linda, and I wasn't brand new to the understanding, but it was fairly early on. But in one conversation with Linda, just sharing what was completely ordinary and common sense to her, my mind just got completely blown in terms of having something that was invisible become visible, in terms of me seeing how I was creating suffering, trying to fix myself, trying to get rid of insecurity. And it was the first time that I really saw that all of these attempts to make myself better and improve myself were actually the source of what was creating the suffering in the first place. So it was completely life-changing. And so I'm very grateful for our work together. And so for today, Linda, it was, one of the things that I was thinking about is how, there's people on this call, some people are very new to the principles, some people are very seasoned practitioners. But one of the things that really stands out to me about this understanding is how, unlike anything else, there are no strategies and techniques involved. It really focuses on understanding and looking toward the spiritual nature of life. And I'm curious, in terms of your experience, coming from a psychology background, coming from, I've heard stories of your early days wanting to, fix yourself in various ways. I'm just wondering what that journey's been like for you, and how that shift from the psychological model to sort of this understanding, how that's evolved for you.
That's a great question. And I want to start with addressing what you said about our conversation when you were here with me doing an intensive, and that moment, that shift where it's the simplicity and truth of how we function psychologically came through and hit you, just hit you on a deep level and changed you. And that happened to me with Sid. And it's a mystery. But I bet you anything that everyone on this call could say that that's happened to them, or something just so simple got through. And I would ask Sid about it, and he'd say, well, what happens is that something simple, true, and profound gets past the intellect. Something simple, true, and profound gets past our ego, our personal thinking. Intellect, personal thinking, ego, all words for the same thing, or different words for the same thing. And I, in my previous work before I met Sid, I just work with people on the level of the ego and the level of the intellect and the level of personal thought, I didn't really understand that there was something deeper. There's a deeper thought process underneath. And that's what you want to aim towards when you work with people. That's the understanding. And you aim at that deeper thought process because you understand it in you. See, that's what happened to you, Rohini, is when you understood it in you. I'm sure you had the same experience I did. It's like, oh, that's where you want to go. That's what you want to have happen. You want to talk to people in a way that is going to optimize that experience. So it was like a new world when I started learning from Sid. It was like, because I was looking for how people evolved. Basically, I was looking to how I evolved. I wanted to evolve. There were some things about me that were troublesome. And I don't know if any of you have heard any of my webinars or gone into any of my seminars, but I would talk about how my moods were a plague. In other words, I would have to stop my life because of my moods. And the first insight I had, like similar to Rohini, but it was a different content. My first insight that got past my intellect was, oh, my moods are just thought. That's all it is. It's nothing other than thought. Well, that understanding settled me down because I was afraid of my moods. And when I realized it was just thought, I stopped being afraid of them. And when I stopped being insecure or afraid of my moods, they were easy to relate to. It was really not the moods that were the problem. It was my reaction or my insecurity around that experience. And that's true, a generalization for everyone. It's really not your bad habits that are the problem. It's the insecurity, judgment, and negative reaction that you have around them that's the problem, not the thing itself. And understanding washes insecurity away, so you don't mind. You don't mind having the bad habits. They come and go. They don't stay because the understanding washes insecurity away.
That's powerful. And one of the other things that I remember you commenting on in that session that we did was, that I was actually listening. And I wasn't really doing it consciously, but in terms of my ability to get impacted in that way, I was actually listening and really open. And I wondered if you'd speak to that as well.
Well, I have a great story about that. So I did a residential with a client. A residential is just working with someone over a 4-day period, like 2 sessions, like 2 1.5 to 2 hour sessions a day. So they end up getting like 8 sessions over a period of 4 days, with some homework in between sometimes. And the sessions build on each other. So you create a momentum, which is great. But anyway, I was doing a residential with someone and I was doing a great job. Oh man, I really had my trip together. I was really speaking to it, But by the 3rd day, I realized that this client really hadn't gotten anything. So I decided to look closer. And I realized they hadn't been listening. And what I mean by that is that instead of just listening and taking me in, they were thinking and processing and analyzing and comparing, contrasting, criticizing, taking issue. They were using their mind actively with everything I said, rather than just taking it in like a sponge would take in water. And so it was actually creating a barrier to having an insight, to having the simplicity of truth hit them at a deeper level of thought or deeper level of mind. So I learned, I learned from that client to check in. Are they listening? Because sometimes people look like they're listening and they're not. And then sometimes you can really see people are thinking and not listening. It's so obvious. But sometimes it's not too obvious. And so you have to check in. Because you're looking for impact. You're looking for change. Like you can see the change because they'll stop. Sometimes it's almost like they've been hit. Their color will change in the face. Their eyes might well up. Their appearance will change often when they get struck by an insight or an understanding that hits them on a deeper level than the intellect.
That's amazing how the physiology can change as a result of that. So we'll continue, but I want to also remind people, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make, to please just raise your hand and I'll know to open it up to you, because we only have an hour and I want everybody who has any questions for Linda.
I want to make a comment about that.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean this, okay? There is no question that's too stupid. So if you think of a question you want to ask, you say, no, I don't want to look stupid. I should know that. Ask it.
Yeah, go ahead. And we know that you might be feeling a little shy, and that's okay. We'll give you some time. So meanwhile, while we're waiting for people to raise their hand, something else that I noticed for myself when, when we work together, but also I see that with clients, is sometimes that even when we have an insight and things shift, sometimes especially I notice that when I'm with you, Linda, sometimes I can feel more insecure rather than less insecure. And you're laughing because you think it's funny, but I don't at the time.
I can't imagine anybody feeling insecure around me. I really don't. Anyway, go ahead.
But what I think can be tricky about, like for me, I thought progress would mean like, oh, well, that means I'm going to feel less insecure in life and I'm not going to have this experience anymore. And what happened was that I actually became more sensitive to it in a sense, but I didn't pay attention to it. But it was like I had insecurity that I wasn't even aware of being there before. And all of a sudden I'm noticing like, oh, it's there.
Oh, Rohini, you asked the best questions. Okay, here's the deal. It's about resiliency. It's about not getting stuck. It's about letting it pass. It's not about making it perfect. Making yourself the perfect personality, like, oh, I'm never going to have a mood again, or I'm never going to have anxiety again, or I'm never going to have worry again, or I'm never going to have a temper again, or I'm never going to get confused. I'm never going to go into doubt. I'm going to get rid of all my bad habits. No, it's about having them without them having you. It's about having them and going, oh, I'm getting over it. So in my life, it's like, like I'll get worried and I'll go, oh, okay. And then I bounce out. It's about resiliency. That's what it's about. Not trying to make yourself a certain way. It's about resiliency. Resiliency of thought, resiliency of mind, just like kids. Kids are so resilient. They get mad, they get happy, they get sad, they get joyful, they get quiet. They just go in and out really fast. They don't stick to anything emotionally. That's it.
Yeah, and with the resiliency, and I'll keep going because nobody's raised their hand yet. We got a shy group. But with resiliency, there's a freedom. And that's what was so different for me. Like when we did that intensive, and I thought I really genuinely thought that I was coming so that you could help me not be insecure, that you were going to show me how I wouldn't have insecurity and I'd get free from it. But what I got instead to me was far more valuable, because I got freedom. And I got freedom to be okay no matter what my emotional experience is. I got more freedom. I'm not saying I'm totally free, but I got a lot more freedom.
No, I know.
Okay.
Because I thought when I got sad or I got mad or I got hurt, that I had to process it to get away from it. And I learned from Sid that that just made it stick. So when I get sad, I don't process it. I just wait for it to lift, because thought is transient by nature. Thought and experience are transient by nature. And yet, unless we use our free will to massage it, to dwell, to hold, to process, and that's what makes it stick around, our free will. But if we don't use our free will on it, on our experience, it will do what it does naturally, which is be transient.
Yeah, that's powerful. So Drawer has raised his hand, so I'm going to go to Drawer. Let me unmute you. Hi, Drawer.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
You well?
I know you. I know you.
I know you too, Linda. Thank you. It's so good to hear you. And I'm so glad that Rohini asked you what you asked. The conversation went to that, because I get it. I don't know, maybe 2 years, 3 years I'm into that. And yet recently, I really started to become aware whenever I have invisible moods, and I don't know, take it out on my wife, or even with myself, or take it out on myself. And at that moment, when things like this happen, those experiences, I know they're not real, and yet I'm in them. So I'm just, I don't know, it's like a habitual thing. I still carry on with it. And even a little bit after that, it takes me a while to, I know that it's not real on the intellectual level, but on me kind of going through that, let's say, with easier time than before, that's not happening to me. It's definitely shorter, but I don't know, when I get a strong emotion, I somehow feel it in my body, and that's still the same. And I guess what I'm trying to say, when I go through it, I don't go through it with ease and grace, as we call it in USM. It's still the same to me. It is shorter, and I do catch myself, oh my God, but it seems real. So I wonder if you have any words of wisdom around that, Linda.
Well, what I hear is that you've changed. And you haven't changed as much as you want to change, but you've changed.
That's true.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you stick with that and just get curious and don't give yourself a bad time, you'll change more. But if you get judgy on yourself and all down on yourself, that's not going to help you. You got to give yourself a break and just notice. And I bet you anything, you've changed more than you think, and you haven't seen it.
That is true. When we're in a good mood, Julie reflects that to me a lot. That's true. It's kind of, I don't know, I guess it's hard to self-observe. I don't have any references of that.
What you can do is Julie your wife?
Yeah.
Well, you ask her then, and you can trust. If you trust her, you can say, okay, how much have I changed? Am I still changing? And that will help you, give you encouragement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drawer.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I just remembered there was a question that someone emailed me, so I'll ask that before I go to the next person with their hand raised. And the question is, I have a question for Linda. Is listening without anything on your mind a conscious practice, or does it happen automatically once you have a deep grounding understanding of the principles?
Well, all I can tell you is how it happened to me. I don't know how it happened, how other people do it, but I learned to listen. When I first listened to Sid, I didn't know what listening was. I thought listening was active. not passive. So when I was trying to learn from him, I was one of those people that was thinking, and trying to get impact, and I didn't. And a friend of mine who was also listening to Sid, who was getting impact, was coaching me and telling me that I wasn't listening, but I couldn't see what he meant until I could. And then all of a sudden I could listen. And actually that might have been my first insight, is an understanding of the difference between what I would call true listening and false listening. But once I learned to listen, I loved it, because it's like you draw the world in. You like suck the world in when you listen. And the quieter your mind and the deeper you listen, the more you take in, and it's a beautiful feeling. I love it. Now, the other thing that occurred to me that really helped me in my listening.
Oh, hello. I'm going to have to use this table for a new patient.
Hang on a minute.
Okay.
All she wanted was a table.
Okay. You're safe for now.
So the other thing that I realized that really, really helped me is that it was my stock and trade, and I had no business having anything on my mind when I was with a client, that I owed them that. That's what they were paying me for. So it was really easy for me to listen because I have a work ethic. So it's, it's like I'm sloppier at home than I am at work, because it's like I have no business having anything on my mind at work when I'm with a client. Now that insight really helped me, but all I can talk about is me. I don't know how other people have done it.
Okay, well that's great, and I'm sure that when the person listens to the recording, that'll be helpful. All right, so we'll go to the next person with their hand raised. That's George. I'm going to unmute you, George. Hi, George.
Hey, Rohini. Hi, Linda. Nice to see you.
Hi, George.
Linda, you mentioned in a question or so ago free will, and it just brought to mind kind of how you see it now. And I've been in this understanding about a tenth as long, basic math, as you have. And I see more and more that it becomes more and more about allowing life to live me. That life's got my back, and there is less and less. The whole thing of free will becomes less and less. It doesn't seem to exist, but something seems to happen. And I've heard Elsie talk about it, having your free will. And it seems to me that either I misunderstand it, because it doesn't seem anything that does.
No, you're using your free will in a good way.
Hope this isn't too arcane.
No, you are using your free will. You're using your free will to take the hands off the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Because you realized that life has your back. See, when people realize something, they use their free will properly.
Okay, it's more confused, but I'll sit with that for a while. Because that's when you take your hand off the wheel, it doesn't seem like yes, I made that choice, and then it's nothing that happens is my choice from there on. Right?
Well, I mean, I suppose, like depending on what level of consciousness you talk about free will, like Sid would, I'm quoting Sid. Okay, this is not my experience.
Yeah.
It might be your experience, but Sid would say you don't have a free will. It's just God's will.
Right. Experience by me is mine.
But people have the experience of free will at different levels of consciousness.
Okay. I'll sit with it another 30 years and then get clearer. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay, so we're going to go to Kathy. Let me unmute you, Kathy. Hi, Kathy.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, it's good to hear you, Linda. It's lovely. And I'm just so enjoying your unique and totally individual way of putting your own words to this understanding. I'm curious, over all of the years, you know, how you have navigated the path of becoming more and more comfortable talking about the spiritual nature of the principles, however you see that, whatever words you use.
Well, would you do me a favor and define what you mean by spiritual? Because there's a lot of different definitions to the word spiritual.
Yeah, and if I'm just thinking of something from some old tape of Sid's where he's talking about, you know, it's pretty blunt. He's saying, you are God. There's a part of you, and maybe the word part isn't right, but once we begin to understand that and have words that we are comfortable with, and there can be a wide range of those, it's much easier to fall into comfort of the quiet place where I can wait for wisdom, the will of God, if you will. But I recognize, as everyone does, that there are many different words that we use in different situations. And I'm just curious for you.
Now I'm going to answer you, and you tell me if I got it right, if I'm answering the right question, okay? When I work with people, I let them guide me.
Yes.
Because some people really want to go spiritual and some people want to stay more psychological.
I agree.
And you can feel it. And
yes.
So I follow the feeling, and the feeling will lead into a very spiritual conversation with some clients and not so much with others.
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
So talking about the spiritual really depends on the openness and readiness of the client that's in front of you.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to put it. And I think what I'm really curious about, and it may not be appropriate to discuss here, and that's fine, I would understand that. I haven't seen you for a long time in person, one-to-one, and I always love just listening to you. And when you are on your own and you are in whatever you call that spiritual place, what little tidbits of that can you share with us that don't violate what you've also just said? Because we're a large group.
Say again, when I'm alone and I'm in a spiritual place, what is my experience?
No, what words do you use to describe your own experience of the principles in a spiritual way?
Oh, okay.
To the extent you're comfortable.
No, that's a really good question. Just give me a moment to reflect.
Sure.
I have a very...
Well, Linda is...
I'm ready. I'm ready to answer.
Yes.
I have a very rich, I have a very rich and gooey feeling. And I feel delighted and grateful for life. And it just feels like everything's beautiful and quiet.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a beautiful answer. I can feel it as you're sharing it. So thank you, Kathy. Let's move along to Jeannie. Hi, Jeannie.
Hi. Hi,
Hello.
guys. Hi, Linda. How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Good.
So I'm pretty new to the principles, and what I experience is, I'm really, when I'm either activated or I'm in a confrontation or something that appears to be a confrontation, my body, like my mind goes to, okay, this is insecure thinking, or I'm not listening right now. But my body feels still really activated, and either the anxiety or feeling choked up or something. And I can't seem to get both in alignment. It's like I guess I'm trying to do the work of telling myself, okay, this is insecure thinking and I can calm down now, and this isn't really what's going on, and this is my point of view. But my body isn't calming down as well. Do you have any suggestions on how to get both in sync, or am I just kind of like, I don't know, still not actually truly believing what I'm telling myself?
No, there can be a sensory delay. In other words, if you have an anxiety attack, say for example,
Yeah.
and you may be over your anxiety attack before the chemistry in your body straightens itself out.
Right, that's what it feels like, kind of.
Yeah, and that's okay, that's normal.
But then it's like harder to stay in the balance of my thinking because I'm still caught up in the body. And then if I'm still in the conversation with the person, it's like I just get activated again, in a sense.
When you're intellectually or mentally out of the problem, but your body still hasn't resolved the chemistry, you're still talking?
Still, yeah. I mean, I'm still engaging with that person, but then they'll say something.
My advice to you is to stop engaging until your chemistry gets right.
Right. Right. And then re-engage. Okay.
Simple, huh?
I know I was about to say that coming out, I was like, that's hard. You read my mind. Okay, I'm up for the challenge. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeannie. Okay, so Shannon, I'll go to you next. Hi, let me unmute you. Hi, Shannon. Oh, there you are.
So I don't know if this is off topic or a stupid question, but Linda said no stupid questions, so I'm asking anyway. I was wondering what you see as the link between this understanding and the environmental crisis. I've been kind of listening, reading a lot about the scientists basically saying, yeah, we only really have a decade to turn it around. And I see so clearly that this understanding would be pivotal in giving people the change of mind and the change of hearts they need. But I don't think it can be done on the 10 or 12 year timeline that we have. And it reminds me of what Sid said at the beginning when he said, oh, in 6 months, everybody will know this, and 40 years later, it's still not really that known. So could you share?
Really, no, I can relate to what you say. And it's, it used to frustrate me because, it's such a simple message. And again, it has to get through to people on a different level than a good idea. It has to really strike them. And it's a mystery about who and when and how many and whether there'll be a critical mass of people that will change their mind, before it's the environment gets beyond being reversed. But then again, you never know what amazing technology or change or ideas are going to come out at the last minute and make a difference. You don't ultimately know until it happens, even though scientists say. But I mean, it is a matter of a change of thought, and how the question is, how do you make that happen? And I just plug away one person at a time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you like that answer, but that's the best I can do.
No, it's that's, yeah. And really what I hear in what you said is that you do have hope, that, you know, I talk to so many people who just feel, I'm 25, so I talk to, you know, a lot of people who just at my age that have no hope, that there's not going to be a future.
Well, there's always hope.
And I hear that in you, and that's so kind of inspiring, really, to like, to just,
you know, there's always hope, because sometimes people come up with amazing solutions, creative solutions,
yeah,
that haven't been thought of before.
yeah, the possibility for fresh thought is always there.
Well, just like they came up with all these things that like are cleaning up the ocean and taking the plastic out, and stuff that eats plastic, bacteria. So they're always coming up with something, and maybe they'll come up with a something that will really turn it around.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you. That was helpful.
Maybe you'll be that person, or one of your friends, you know, your age group. I mean, maybe that's the challenge of your age group, is to come up with something that's going to really make a difference.
I agree. These are the things I think about basically all day, every day. So that's why I just couldn't miss the opportunity to get your thoughts on it. But yeah, I see what you're saying, and I totally
But don't
agree.
ever give up hope. Don't ever give up hope, because hope is a ladder to a new idea. Hope is a ladder to a new thought. Pessimism is a disease of the mind. Even if it looks legitimate, it's a disease of the mind. It's not going to help you find new thought. Hope will help you find new thought.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Next person is Cassandra. I'll unmute you. Hi, Cassandra.
Hi, Rohini. Hi. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Cassandra.
Lovely
Nice
to
to
see
see
you.
ya.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask a question, and it's a little linked to what Jean said. I'm understanding that my emotions, my feelings are an indicator as to what I'm thinking. And that insight, when that struck me, has been really helpful, that the way that I'm feeling or the emotion that I have is an indicator of where my thinking is at. And my question, or just wondering what your thoughts are about it, are about the body being an indicator. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because I have a cousin that I was just, you know, spending time with, listening to. And when I talked to, it just came to me to talk about breathing, just, you know, literally relaxing his body. And, you know, I saw that there was a lot of tension held in his body. And when he relaxed, he said, oh yeah, you know, like, I feel different. And during the time that I was with him, I noticed that he just was probably, it appeared, thinking about his body and relaxing his body, and that appeared to be quietening his mind. So I wondered what you think about the body being an indicator and listening to it as an indicator, as well as thinking or emotions.
Yeah,
feelings
because
or emotions.
it's, you know, you're everything's tied together. Your mind is connected to your body's connected to your mind, your thoughts connected to feeling, your feelings connected to your sensory system. It's all, you know, one big circle. So yeah, I mean, if you can use the body as an indicator of your feeling and an indicator of your thinking. If your body's all tense, you know, you're thinking tense and you're feeling tense and your body's tense.
Yeah, that you're thinking tense. That's kind of, I just really wanted to hear what your thoughts were, and that's what came to me, is that I'm thinking tense, or
yeah, you're thinking tense. Now,
yeah,
tense could be fear, it could be worry, it could be, I don't know, could be a
yeah,
number of things. Yeah, could
yeah,
be
even
financial tension,
yeah,
relationship tension. You know, could be a lot of different parenting tension, work tension,
yeah.
self-image tension.
Yes. Well, when I was sitting here, when I raised my hand, I mean, I had a question, but when I raised my hand, I could feel, this vibration in my body, like, oh, I'm going to speak, And then I thought, well, there you go. There's an indicator that I'm in my thinking, speaking tension. So, yeah, I mean, actually, that was helpful, because I just, listened to you, listened to what you were, saying in the moment, have my feet on the ground, relax my body. And then I felt absolutely fine. I didn't have thinking tension. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next person we'll go to is Julianne. Let me see if I can unmute you. There you go. Hi, Julie.
Hi. Hi, Linda.
Hi, sweetie pie.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So my question actually was around climate change too, and I thought maybe it was really similar to what was asked, but then I felt kind of a different question around it, which was, I seem to go between wanting to stay informed and getting really stirred up about it, to coming back to wisdom and having like more balance inside. And then also having the experience of being in partnership. So Jor is my husband, and he can sometimes be sensitive to being worried about climate change.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I just, partially in my head, it's like it's wrong to be worried about it, and I should be in wisdom. But then also recognizing that like I'm human and I can't really control that. So that's the best I can articulate what's been happening around it.
Okay, so I'll give you an example from my life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband had open heart surgery recently. That's why I'm at physical therapy.
Mm.
And there was a period of time where I was worried about him getting pneumonia because he wasn't using his suck and blow machine
Mm-hmm.
enough, and he wasn't coughing enough, because you in order to do open heart surgery, they break your sternum, so you have a broken bone, and you have to breathe into that broken bone, and it hurts like hell. So you don't want to do suck and blow, and you don't want to cough, and you don't want to take deep breaths. But if you don't, you risk pneumonia. Okay.
Mm.
So I was talking to my sister-in-law about this, and she could tell I was worried. And she said, how is worry going to prevent him from getting pneumonia? She said, do you think you can worry him out of pneumonia? And it was so funny to me, because I realized that I did. I thought if I worried enough, I could change it. So my point is that you can see what is with clear eyes. You can see that your husband, what he needs to do. You can understand that if he doesn't, he could get pneumonia. You don't have to have the worry added on to it. Because I really, and I was embarrassed, because I realized I was thinking that if I worried enough, I could stop him from having pneumonia.
Yeah, and that's how it feels. Like if I worry enough, we could stop climate change. Like when it's happening, that's what it feels like.
You can't. You can have eyes wide open and see what is and see what you could do with or without worry. And worry is it's gonna take its toll on your body.
Right.
And your mind. So you have to but you have to find out how to do that.
Right. How to see what is without worry.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. All right, we'll go to Sydney next. Hi, Sydney.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear
I
you.
can.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I am not new to non-duality, but I am new to the principles. And I'm not getting much out of this event so far, and I wondered if you'd be willing to model what working with someone looks like. Would you be willing to work with me for 2 to 3 minutes, just so I can understand what it is you're...
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay with everyone, I can. Is it okay with everyone?
I mean, we can't really do a show of hands for everyone, but nobody's protesting on the chat, so we'll go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I don't know how you begin. Do you ask for a topic, or do you...
Well, what do you want? Here's what I can do to start. And you can answer, you could pick one of these questions to answer.
Okay.
What is it that you're concerned about, or what is it that you want to know, or what is it that you want to change? Like, why do you want help?
Yeah, well, I'll pick an easy one. I am overweight and I eat too much and I struggle with dieting and I go up and down in my weight and so forth and so on. And you know, I'm all over Amy Johnson and her little book, A Big Change, and so that's something I would definitely like to feel freer about and fix.
So I will tell you something. This is what now I'm going to shortcut this because we don't have an hour. Okay, so I'm going to shortcut this. From what you said, okay, if you were my client, what I would work with you on is your feeling of desperateness. Because your feeling of desperateness is going to undermine what you want to do.
Sure. And is there a first question or process you would undertake? Well, without, as I say, just in the 2 minutes?
I would say, I would say, well, one of the things I would say, one of the questions I would ask you is, why does it matter if you're overweight?
And that's, of course, people won't love me. I won't find my husband.
Was that true? Or is that just what other people say?
It's what other people say, but it seems true.
What's true for you? What do you think when I say, why does it matter?
Feels true for me that it keeps love away. And that sounds ridiculous when I hear myself say it.
I know, it's like me when my sister-in-law said, you think you can worry enough to keep pneumonia away, and I realized how ridiculous that was.
So just, I won't take any more time. Would you say that the work you do is sort of a process of inquiry? Would that be a fair way to characterize?
Well, you're a very intelligent person. Here's the thing, is that I found through working, that if you get people reflective, they do things like you just did. Gee, that doesn't sound right, that just because I'm overweight, people aren't going to love me. That sounds ridiculous. You get people reflecting, they hear themselves, they hear how ridiculous they are, and they change. They move.
Great, thank you. That answers my question. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you, Sydney. Okay, I'm looking. I don't see anyone else with their hand raised. Oh, Angus. Angus.
Can I say one thing more about reflection?
Yes, go ahead.
I promise, Angus, that I'll answer yours. But the thing is, see, people have wisdom. They have their answers. See, you have your answers. It's just that your thinking is so close that you can't see. And reflection, your thinking starts to get away from your hand starts to go away from your face. Reflection gets your thinking off your mind, and you start to come up with, your wisdom comes out. See, you have your answers. You just can't see them because you're not reflecting. And like when I talked about desperateness keeps your hand on your face. Okay. All right, Angus.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I really hope this is not a stupid question. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're unmuted.
So I think I'm a visual person, and I may be a literal person. I think I may be a visually literal person. And so this idea of free will, I guess there's a part of me that really wants to sort of isolate that, see what it is for myself. And I guess at this point, I feel like that's not really cropped up too much in conversation of late in my coaching work. But I guess I'm just interested on your spin on what free will is. Is free will and the ego one and the same in your estimation? Is free will and the ego one and the same? I just guess I want to put a pin on.
No, in my experience, it's like and I was talking with, I think it was George. I said, because he was using, the way he was talking, he was using his free will in a very positive way. We can use our free will in a really negative way. We could use our free will. When we understand, we will use our free will. See, like, right. Here's an example. I'm going to use my husband. He was using his free will to not do what he was supposed to do with regard to his lungs. Now, once he understood, all of a sudden he's using his free will to make the choices he needed to make to clear his lungs, even though it was really hard and painful. So it's like we use our free will according to our level of understanding, is another way of saying it. And as our level of understanding increases, we use our free will differently. That's how I see it.
Okay. Because I guess for me, I think where I'm coming a little bit unglued with this, it almost feels like free will is kind of outside the principles. It's almost like a principle in itself. It's like we have.
No, it's a human capacity. Free will is a human capacity
that can take its influence from either negative or positive.
That's right.
Terms.
Yep.
And will be.
I mean, if you listen to Sid's recording, he'll say that there's thought, consciousness, and mind, and then we have our free will.
Yeah, I have heard him say that. Yeah.
And we can use thought. If you think of thought as a tool, you can use that tool in a negative way, or you can use that tool in a positive way.
Right.
And once we get understanding, we will use it in a positive way. Like, for example, before I met Sid, my understanding was that being a pessimist was good.
Mm.
And then when I was listening to Sid, I had the realization that pessimism was bad for me. So I changed my mind. And I used thinking in a different way, in a positive way, rather than a negative way.
Mm. So free will is just basically how we use our understanding of the principles.
Yeah.
How we use our understanding.
Yeah, how we use our understanding. Like, and in other things, like, for example, and this is understanding, okay? So your temper comes up, and it's right here, and you're going to speak it. And then you have the thought, that's going to make a mess. I don't think I should speak it. That's using your understanding and free will to keep your mouth shut. When I talked with that woman who said, she was talking about how her body experience in her body was different than her thinking, and she wanted them to be together in sync. And I told her that the chemistry takes a bit more to clean up. And she said, but I keep talking. Now, wisdom would tell her, stop talking, because you're going to get reactivated because your chemistry isn't clean.
Mm-hmm.
And she would use her free will differently.
Mm-hmm.
Once she has that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
See, once you have the understanding to keep your mouth shut, you use your free will to keep your mouth shut. If you don't have the understanding, you don't.
Right. So
Is that
free will,
helpful?
yeah, it is helpful. It's just it's helps me. It's a conversation I like having. And I guess free will kind of acts like a filter, in a sense. We filter in a way where we're either coming from a place of understanding or we're coming from a place of not understanding, and we make decisions accordingly.
Yeah, it's like if you look back at your life, there are things that you do differently because of understanding, so you will stop yourself. You use your free will to stop yourself. Like when I worked in the prisons with Kathy, the guys were telling me that they didn't know that they didn't have to act on their thinking and feeling. So they would start, their thinking and feeling would come up to do something criminal, and they realized they didn't have to act on it, and they'd use their free will to stop themselves. I mean, I learned that early when my mother told me not to hit my brother. And I had to use my free will to not hit my brother. But somehow I got that memo early.
Yeah, thank you. I like it. It's helpful.
Thank you, Angus. Linda, we have one more hand raised. Can we take one more question?
Sure.
Okay, Mitchell, you'll be the last question we take.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
My question is about other people.
Those other people.
Other people, yeah. You know, that guy at work, that's the really difficult one to work with, that everybody agrees is the really difficult one to work with. And there's a lot of evidence that he's the difficult one to work with. And I don't know what my question is. I don't have a question per se, but is any insight on this? Like, I have been trying to not make this guy real, like he's really this way, in conversations that I've had with my boss, with other people, and yet it keeps showing up like that he's this way.
Well, here's what you could do as a principle-based person, okay? Look at what it is, and it probably is, instead of, I'll just stipulate he's difficult, okay? I'll give you that, he's difficult. But what you want to look at is your reaction, which is bother. Or I'm assuming it's bother. It might be something other than bother. It might be anger, it might be judgment, or who knows what it is. But there's a reaction in you. Now, if you address that reaction and come to peace with that reaction, you won't care how he is.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you might care in principle, or you might care in terms of, his performance, in a good way, in a productive way.
Right.
You're not going to care about it emotionally if you address your reaction. If you see what your reaction is and see that as just you having a reaction.
Yeah. In other words, like owning my reaction, owning it, that's mine.
Yeah, that's yours. And if you don't have it, you're not going to react to him, and you're not going to care.
Right.
how he is.
Right.
Except, like I said, if it has to do, if you were his boss or something, you might have to care about his work performance.
Understood.
Is that helpful?
It is helpful. Yeah, it is helpful. Because, you know, when I can see where my own reaction is at play, the whole thing has a chance to dissolve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the realness doesn't feel so solid anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's great. Thank you. Well, Linda, thank you so much for spending this time with us and fitting it in physiotherapy. We're all very grateful. And this will be recorded. It is recorded, so that it will be available if people want to listen to it again. And the next, let me put the date, the next webinar is going to be with Elsie Spittle, and that's on Thursday, June 27th at 11 a.m. And these webinars are free webinars with all of the teachers that are in the Soul Centered Series program that starts in October. And they're, all of the teachers are offering to share this and to participate in this way. So hopefully you can make a lot of the webinars or watch the recordings over the summer. And if anybody has any questions about the program, I'd be happy to speak with you about it. We did it last year, and it was such a rich experience that Angus and I decided to do it one more time, and the teachers agreed to participate, and even more are joining in. So looking forward to that as well. So thank you, Linda. Very grateful. Give our love to George.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, very grateful. Well, take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.